our first speaker, who really deserves not just a flower but a whole garden. For this is Professor S.C. Agarkar, who is one of the organizers and whom we have been hearing from. Tirelessly keeping the organization of this conference on track. Professor Agarkar is formerly of the Tata Institute for Fundamental Research in Science and Math Education, and he is now here at VPM's Academy of International Education and Research, currently interested particularly in comparative education, especially in the field of ethnomathematics. He will be speaking to us today on the Pedagogical Analysis of Lilavati. Professor Agarkar.
As it has been told that I had a very long career in the field of science and math education, and therefore when I started reading Lilavati, I started looking at it through the pedagogical perspective, how useful it is in terms of teaching and what pedagogical aspects are embedded in the writing. When I did that, I could see few things. This is of course my opening slide. What one notices, and it has been already told, that Lilavati is written in a poetic form, and there have been some poems described also. There are about 270 verses. Some of them pose problems, some of them suggest how to solve them. And interestingly, Bhaskara900 has not attempted to solve any problem. And the problems that are there are based on everyday experiences and refer to animate objects like bees, elephants, snakes, peacocks, etc. And also inanimate objects like bricks, bamboo. And many times the author addresses with loving and caring words. So I would try to give you a few examples in this. Look at whatever I have said. Look at this. He suggests multiple methods. I have a shloka written as it appears in Lilavati. And it's not an exact translation. It only says that he suggests 5 different methods of multiplication. Here you can see Rupa Gunarita, Khanda Gunarita, Bha Gunarita, Sthan Gunarita, and Ishtalka. And I have also tried to give an example. Suppose I want to multiply 156 into 16. So I can do this if I know the tables of 16. Or if I don't know that, I can divide 16 into 2 parts. Because I am a little lazy person, I have divided it into 8 and 8. I could have done it 9, 7 also. Or one can also have 156 into 4 and then 4. Or Sthan Guna is ultimately what is 16? 16 is 10 and 6. One the tens place is 10. So you multiply by 10 and 6. And finally you take a Ishtanka number which you think is suitable. And for example, here you take 20 as Ishtanka number, multiply by 20. Actually 16 were given, you have taken 20, so you have taken 4 more. So multiply by 4 and subtract. So this will be multiplication. Okay, this is one more. Another example I am trying to give you here is the Bhaskara900 trying to bring in relevance to daily life. Say for example here, say mathematician, what the apportion the share of 3 traders whose original capitals were respectively 51, 68 and 85, which have been raised by commerce conducted by them on joint stock to the aggregate amount of 300. This is something what we call bhagidari in our language, where so many people come together and do the business. Such a relevance one sees. One also see that author challenges sometimes to the readers and say, if you know this, you will be able to answer. Or say quickly, this is one of the examples from Bhaskara method. Say quickly, mathematician, what that multiplier is by which 221 being multiplied and 65 added to the product, the sum divided by 195 becomes exhausted. So says, tell me quickly. And in some cases also suggest if you know this, you will be able to solve. So such special feature one sees that. And as I have already said, every time the author addresses with a loving word, sometimes Bale, sometimes Lile, sometimes Mitra, like that. And here is one example which gets translated into beautiful, dear Lilavati, whose eyes are lit. Tell me the numbers resulting from 135 taken into 12, if thou be skilled in multiplication by whole or by part, whether by subdivision of form or separation of digits, tell me, auspicious woman, the quotient of the product divided by some same multiplier. This is how he addresses. And I am now looking at how do I look, what are the pedagogical aspects in that. The first thing which I have noticed is what is called motivation. There is a saying that you cannot teach if someone doesn't want to learn. And therefore there is a need to motivate the learner to learn. And what are the ways of motivating? It could be various ways of motivating. And here one takes that there are efforts to motivate the learner through a variety of ways. The second pedagogical aspect which I see, which is also related to motivation, is content relevance. Many of you who are practicing teachers would have experienced that students are not interested in learning. Why? Because they don't find relevance to their daily life. Why am I learning this? Say Pythagoras theorem, I am solving examples, solving writers. What is the relevance of it? I just remember for the examination, that's what they feel. Here, of course, this is not the situation. The author brings the content relevance. The third aspect which I have said and I am sort of summarizing is instigating, challenges. Challenges students to deal with problems by providing useful and relevant guidelines. And most important hallmark of this book, what I call is open-endedness. There is a teaching methodology which is called open-ended method of teaching, which is not followed, at least in India, where you are given a choice to solve a problem as the way you like. And therefore, you don't find any problem solved there. And the last pedagogical aspect, which I call rapport. Unless there is a rapport between the learner and the teacher, the teaching doesn't place. In fact, it doesn't take place. If you look at our ashram school system, there has been a very close rapport between the learner and the teacher, and they learn a lot. If these are few pedagogical aspects, then what I thought, let me try this out into the system. Okay? Just remaining at this analysis level is of no great use, and therefore I have started conducting workshops. And as when we decided that we will be celebrating 2014 as the year of Bhaskara900, we said let us plan the year-long activity. One was certainly the conference, but starting from January to the December, we have said let us organize workshops. And the objectives of the workshops were two. Firstly, I wanted to test whether all these pedagogical things are useful and relevant in the present context or not. And secondly, I wanted to make students and teachers aware of such a great mathematics that is existing here. And I am happy to tell you that starting from January, I could conduct 37 workshops in 9 months. And that too in different states, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra and Andhra Pradesh. Of course, there has been many requests in the month of September, which I have said, sorry, I will do it in October because of the organization of the conference. And I would like to tell you that these workshops cater to different groups of audience, and I would like to show you some of the pictures. See this picture, see the crowd, you see the crowd? And when people approach me, I said I will need 50 students because it's a workshop mode, they will have to do the problem and I will have to supervise them. They said, no, 50, all our 300 students will sit. They will not get opportunity to listen to you repeatedly. So you can see the crowd sitting on the ground, sitting on the chairs, such a huge crowd. And this was in a small village in Konkan and one in Western Maharashtra. So such a big crowd. You can see this is the class. This is the students from secondary school. One is a group from Kolhapur, another is a group from Solapur in Maharashtra itself. Let me also show you, this is the junior college group, the little older students who are carefully listening and doing the problem. Here is another group which I call Polytechnic. On the left hand side you will see the group of students from BPM's Polytechnic. You can see the smiling face of girls. Possibly they are smiling for the first time. On the other side you see I am standing and addressing a group in a place called Vani in the district of Yavatmal, which also runs Polytechnic. Interestingly, there has also been request from engineering colleges. And so you can see on the left hand side, I conducted a workshop for the students of engineering college at Aurangabad and also in Kolhapur. On the other side, we have members of small scale industries who were also interested to know what Lilavati is. Okay, these are some of the pictures. Let me now share some of the experiences. See what I used to do. Earlier, 1 or 2 workshops I did not bother, I started doing it. But then later I said, let me collect some data. So I started giving this questionnaire, very simple questionnaire. The first question is, have you heard of Bhaskara? Just a half a part of the full-scale paper was given. Second is, if yes, what do you know about him? So if they answer no to the first question, they don't write anything for the second. Similarly, the third question is, do you know that Bhaskara wrote a book entitled Lilavati? If yes, what are salient features? And what is your opinion about India's contribution to mathematics? And let me tell you, the sheet used to be blank. At the most, they would say something here and there, but nothing relevant. And what I did was, I had asked all the students to keep the answer sheets with them. And at the end of my 3-hour workshop, I once again posed the same question and said, now write down whatever you could. And I will present some of those. But before that, let me share some of the interesting experiences. This is all, statistical data. But let me tell you, I think I have told you this workshop is arranged in 2 parts. The first part is to provide how the tradition of mathematics existed in India, starting from prior to Christian era, Bodhayan, Pingala, Katyayana, etc. After Christian era, Aryabhatta contributed, Brahmagupta contributed, and this tradition continued, and I then come to what Bhaskara did, about Bhaskara, his background, etc., etc. And I tell them forcefully, especially in Maharashtra, that he was born in Maharashtra. And then I also show that statue, the stone carving, etc., etc. And the second part is where the students are expected to solve the problem. Okay. Now let us. Now, if I look at the data analysis, the data that I have told you collected, I have about 5,000 answer sheets collected over the span of 9 months. I could not analyze all of them. When I looked at some of them, this is what the general picture is. Hardly 5% of the students have heard about Bhaskara. That is sad part of our education system. Those who have heard knows a little about him. Hardly 5%, it will be 5, 6, 7 of that order. Students know that Bhaskara wrote a book, Lilavati. Of course, those who do not know about Bhaskara, they would not know that he wrote a book. And those who know cannot tell exactly what the book contains. And the majority of the students say the contribution of India to mathematics is 0 into inverted comma. And this is what European and American people have been saying, that the contribution of India to mathematics into inverted comma is 0, which has 2 meanings. Contribution is 0 and 0 is the contribution. And this is what has been seen even among the students within India. Okay. Now let me give you some very interesting experience. The very first experience is students are surprised to see a mathematics teacher with a smiling face. Because they feel that mathematics is such a serious subject that it has to be learned seriously, taught seriously, so they did not expect it. The second thing is they say, what type of this book is? They don't solve the problem. They are familiar with guides. Those who are Indian culture, they know who Navneet is, Navneet publishes guides. So they are all familiar with guides and they don't want to do anything else. They say, give us solve one problem and then we'll do it accordingly. And therefore this is something new to them. And this open-endedness, which is advocated at various places. In fact, I had an opportunity to read a book, Open-Ended Method of Problem Solving, that is followed in Japan very, very strongly. But students don't like. They say, give us a model answer. This model answer is a verb, phrase that is used in our annual examinations. And if it doesn't belong to model answer, then we give 0 marks, even though you might have done something different. So the model answer is a fixed idea. However, students appreciate the style of posing the problems, where they are addressed directly, when there is a reference to animate objects, and they try to solve it. At many places, when I said I need 3 hours, I have been told by headmasters and class teacher, our students will not sit for 3 hours. I said I will do it in 2 sessions of 90 minutes. They said, no, 90 minutes they cannot see it. 35 minutes is the maximum limit. They said, leave it to me. And I could engage them for 90 minutes without any problem. All these students not only sat, solved the problem, even after that, they came behind me, give us more problems. So this is such a motivating factor. Now, what are the outcomes? Of course, the entire data has to be analyzed, but I can tell you the outcomes of these efforts. It has been found that the workshops on Lilavati are useful to familiarize the students with a rich tradition of Indian mathematics, which is necessary. To enhance the confidence of students that they can solve mathematical problems on their own. Unless, because you might like to know that they also did not like the idea that not only the book doesn't solve the problem, but there are no answers given at the end of the book. Such a bad book. But then, when given an opportunity, they feel confident. To develop problem-solving skills among students, learning at different stages. I have started from primary to the engineering college. To know that different methods can be used to deal with a given problem, just not the model answer, but there are different ways of doing it. This is what open-ended method is. And some of them could be quite complicated and some could be simple. And it also helps to appreciate that Indian mathematicians have contributed substantially to the growth of mathematics. Not only 0, but something more. And to create interest towards mathematics and to motivate students to pursue career in mathematics. Even though we have such a huge population, many of you might like to know that there are very few students in the Department of Mathematics. Even at the BSc, very few students offer. At MSc, there are very small number of children pursuing mathematics. And I hope efforts like this would enhance their interest. So, where does one go from here? This has begun, this has been encouraging, and this has been fruitful. So there is no point in stopping. So, and I would like to continue throughout this year and also after this year. Maybe based on the experiences we can modify. In fact, I would appeal some of you not only to arrange such workshops, but organize on your own for the benefit of students. It is really pleasurable and enjoyable. And we would like also try to bring in the biography of Bhaskara900 in the curriculum somewhere in mathematics books, so that you know who this person attempt to include problems from Lilavati in school exam and school curriculum, and make the content of school mathematics relevant to the lives of students, which is most important. Because I have basically worked for the tribal children. I know this relevance is important. And encourage open-ended method of problem solving, because the country or the world now need problem solvers. They don't need just the followers. What is called the present, the aim of present education is to create people who can use their knowledge, what's called contextualize multiple intelligence. So in that context, the Lilavati has a big role to say. Thank you. You can look at your watch. It is 20 minutes.
Thank you very much, Professor Agarkar, and also for your wonderful talk and your prompt and adherence to the schedule. We have plenty of time for some questions. Will you prefer to choose the lecture?
It's your privilege.
Yes. So, questions, please.
Sir spent an introduction, even though I said they don't introduce me such a big man, etc., etc. But there are formalities. Someone wants to give the bouquet of flowers, etc. All this goes about 10 minutes it consumes. Then what I do is I speak for about 70 minutes, where I provide the information about the tradition of mathematics education, starting from Bodhaya, referring to Shurva Sutra, where he has even described the Pythagoras theorem in a different style, of course, and then go up to Bhaskara900's work. So there I stop, and I say Bhaskara900 was such a genius that he has produced so many books, Lilavati, Bijgadita, Grahagadita, Golajay, Vivarana, so many. So I say I don't know so many things, but I can tell you something about Lilavati. So that's the end of my first session. Then there's a 10 minutes break. So after 10 minutes break, all people come together, and then everyone is expected to have pen and pencil. And I also expect not only the projection, but also expect either a whiteboard or a blackboard. And I give the problem and allow the students to solve. And I allow them to discuss. I don't follow the teacher's rule of keep silent, keep silent. I allow them to discuss. If they want to do in group, they are allowed to do that. And if someone comes out with an answer, that boy or a girl is expected to come forward and solve it. So this goes for about 70-80 minutes, and that's how 3 hours are spent.
How many problems can you give during these?
Depending on, as I told you, depending on the clientele, I choose the students. If it's a primary level, I limit to multiplication, squaring, etc. About 6-7 problems, not more than that. Because sometimes I have to repeat, sometimes I have to the child comes, and sometimes I have to say, why don't you come, why don't you come? You see, in Indian culture, somehow students don't come forward. They have to be called, even at the college level. So all this consumes time, 5-6. But when I did for engineering college, I think I could do about 12 problems, because they were quite smart children, and they could solve problems quite fast, especially in Aurangabad. It's a very good engineering college, and I could do 15 problems, 12, 13 problems.
Did you do any permutation combination of questions from Lilavati?
You mean questions based on permutation combination? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. But that was for the secondary level students. I did that. And in fact, if you have so many masala padartha, then the problem is if you have this masala padartha, the item, this masala item, etc., etc. If you go on mixing them, 1, 2, 3, 4, how many combinations you can have? Such problems are very fascinating to the students.
But you give the same wordings, or you change the wordings also?
No, what I do is, I have here you might have seen you have a sensory written. If it's an English medium school, I take the English version from Paul Brooks' book. And if it's a Marathi medium school, I take the Marathi version from Phadke's book. I have not dared to translate it. And in some cases I have to explain. I did in Hindi in Bhopal, but used the English version.
Question. Do you use the square root and cube root algorithms as part of the problem? Because
Yeah.
that is something that I think, at least in my country, very few students have ever attempted nowadays. The electronic calculators have just taken over the problem of finding roots.
No, actually, the same culture is being developed here. We have also started using not the calculator but the mobile. I have started giving lectures in this same institute, and I have found that many students don't take notes. They take only click on PowerPoint, and at the end they say, "Give us your pen drive, we'll copy it." So that culture, we may be about 25 years behind, but we are following the same path.
You mentioned about only about 5% of the students would really know about Lilavati or during we have studied almost mathematics for 12 to 15 years because of engineering and masters, etc. But I think we never came across mathematics being taught the way we had explained yesterday and today. For example, if it is so simple, then I think it should have been we should have been done a better job. Instead of 5%, at least 50% should have been knowing about Bhaskara900 and about the mathematics scholars from India. So, what's the problem really? I mean, only marks is the problem, because when we go for marks, we forget about who created the basic, such a beautiful expression of teaching mathematics. And then, as I also observed, in our schools, arithmetic was taught better than algebra. So algebra actually came at about 8th standard, while the arithmetic came at about 4th standard. And arithmetic, we had all these examples, what you showed from, so there was again a difference of teaching between arithmetic and algebra. And I think Bhaskara900 had done a great amount of work, but we seem to have lost it.
Yeah, if you allow me 2 minutes, I can answer this question through an anecdote. Because I worked in this field of mathematics education. This was a class going on in the tribal village called Piuli in the state, in the district of Thane of Maharashtra. Some of you who knows mathematics would know, factorize the equation. You have x square plus 7x plus 12. Factorize. So teacher said factorize. So when teacher ordered factorize, the students sitting in the front row started doing something. Students sitting in the middle rows pretended that they are doing. The students behind, they said, anyway teacher is going to write, why take trouble? They did something else. So one student said again, one bracket x plus 3, another bracket x plus 4. Fine, good. Now another algebraic equation. It went on for about 25 minutes. And later on he said, would you like to talk to children? So I stood in front of the children. I said, boys, these are all tribal boys. Boys, like you, I am also weak in mathematics. But because I am weak in mathematics, I had an embarrassing situation. Now I am translating Marathi into English. English is not very correct. I said phajiti. That phajiti has a specific meaning in Marathi, which cannot be translated into English. So they started looking at my phajiti. I said my phajiti was, I had a boy friend who will not tell me, give me answer in straight words. So I said, how much money you have? Because we wanted to go to the hotel. He said, how much money you have? He said, I have 5 rupees more than that birthday has. But if you multiply, it is 300. So what do I do? How do I know what money he has? Now I became the poor person who doesn't know mathematics, and they became experts. And they started telling me. And finally I came to the quadratic equation. So I asked them, how do you solve? They said, we cannot solve. If you tell us x plus 5 is equal to 13, we can separate that x. And said, this is what your teacher was telling you, that quadratic equation can be converted into 2 brackets, and handling each bracket is simple. We said, oh, such a useful thing. Now we are ready to factorize. So what I have done, I have only showed them the relevance. To answer your question, why our children are not interested in mathematics is because because there is no relevance of mathematics, not relevance shown. I'm saying there is no relevance. This relevance is not shown in teaching. And another factor which hampers the performance is what is called prerequisites. If you don't know the prerequisite, then you have a problem. I would be able to speak on that for a long time.
What are the words?
I'm afraid I must cut off the
Yeah,
discussion now,
yeah,
just
yeah.
to keep us on track. But let us